I have with me Dr. Farrell. He is back. He's a PhD, a speaker, and author of several books, including The Myth of Male Power, and his new book, The Boy Crisis. The Boy Crisis, Why Our Boys Are Struggling and What We Can Do About It. Dr. Farrell, welcome back. Thank you for coming on again.
Thank you. I'm looking very forward to being with you again.
Yes, sir. You want to take a stab at my biblical question, why are women drawn to weak men?
Actually, women are drawn to weak men only in the sense that men's strength is their facade of weakness. So, for example, as a rule, women are drawn to men who they perceive to be strong. But often men who are strong are having a facade of weakness. And we see this all throughout the animal kingdom as well. For example, among insects, birds, buck elks. I'll give you a really fascinating example. Among buck elks, the elk that 85% of the females who are mate with is the elk that has the longest antlers. The elk that has the longest antlers is the alpha elk, and attracts the 85% of the females to mate for mating. However, in order to get those long antlers, 33% of the calcium in the elk's body is used up. The minerals and the nutrients are used up. So the elk that appears to be the strongest is actually the weakest among the elks because all the nutrients are used up. If that elk does not rub its antlers off on a tree immediately after it mates, it will be likely to die because it doesn't have enough nutrients to be able to replenish itself before the winter season comes. So, and it's really a perfect metaphor for men's strength often being their facade of weakness. And so women are often, so here all these elks, the female elks are attracted to this male that appears strong, but underneath that elk is very weak.
Amazing. Interesting. Is the boy crisis primarily a fatherlessness and divorce crisis?
The simple answer is yes. But how I got to that answer was more complicated. I spent 11 years researching the boy crisis and had 10 causes lined up as possible primary causes. But every time I started to look at what cause led to what, I realized that almost everything led back to fatherlessness. And it's very unlike me to have a one-cause solution for anything.
Right.
And it isn't only a one-cause solution. There are other causes. But the power of fatherlessness stunned me. I ultimately was able to identify more than 70 areas where when a man or a woman does not have a father, that those children suffer significantly. They're much more so. For example, just in just gross terms, our ISIS recruits are almost all fatherless, males and females. The people who are doing the shootings, 28 of the shootings that have been the heaviest duty mass shootings since 1948, that is shootings that have killed 8 people or more. Among those shootings, the 28 of them, 26 were boys, done by boys who did not have any father involvement or had very minimal father involvement. So that gives you just a sense. And the Texas shooting was an exception to that rule. So that was one of the two where there were 2 parents. But by and large, it's 26 out of 28 were fatherless, and of course, what we think of these boys as criminals, and they of course are, but they're also the vulnerability that led to these boys feeling that there was no way to express themselves other than by killing is also something that needs to be considered.
The father of the boy that did the shooting in Houston recently said that he thought that his son was solid because both parents are in the home. I don't know if the father wasn't around. Why would the father think his son is solid and not know for sure if he was? But instead of blaming it on bullying.
Yes, well, it's a tough one there because usually that means the father was not as connected with the son as he should have been.
Yeah.
That's for sure. Second, as you probably have heard, if this is true, one of the things that happened was this boy was very interested and attracted to a girl, and he kept coming on to that girl, and the girl felt that he was coming on too strongly, and then he announced in front of an entire class with the boy there.
Well, she did. She announced it.
That's right. She announced it in front of the class, exactly, with the boy there that he was being aggressive and overbearing and that type of thing, and obviously that significantly embarrassed him and humiliated him. And so, but other people could be embarrassed and humiliated in that way and not turn around and do a school shooting. So obviously there's multiple factors that were coming there. He was obviously weaker and didn't have the internal strength that many people thought that he had. And so his behavior is in a way quite an exception to the rule.
It was also reported, I saw one young student saying that the shooter, he wore a long coat. He was bullied by at least the football coach or one of the coaches because he smelled. He had an odor. And so he was bullied by the teacher as well. And apparently, if that's true, he wasn't able to handle that in a proper way either.
Yes, absolutely. And certainly wearing the long trench coats and smelling and allowing your social persona to go is a sign of lack of self-respect and a feeling like you've been alienated from that you don't have a chance to really make positive social contact with people. And so one of the problems with boys like this, where there's not a good set of social skills that are developed, and that often means a lack of family dinner nights where there's a chance to talk openly about what's going on in your life. One of the very differentiating factors aside from father involvement that I saw that was so important for boys was having a family dinner nights where there's absolutely no electronics allowed, where everyone is listened to and not judged before they have a chance to talk, and where each family member facilitates other family members to say what's on their mind and what they feel, no matter what those feelings are, where there's no topics that are banned from the conversation at the table.
Well, it's clear to me that his father and mother failed him, because you can't be good parents and produce bad children. Good parents produce good children. Bad parents produce bad children. You bring up girls as well, and I think most people don't realize that there is the boy and girl crisis in our country due to the fathers not being there and guiding them in the right way and giving them the love that only the love from a father can cause you to grow up with a sound mind and healthy spirit. And why do you think they're not pointing out that there is a girl crisis when it comes to the lack of values? The girls are angry, they're out of control, they hate boys, they hate men, they hate their fathers, and they grow up to become women. They turn into feminists, and they hate the unborn child and everything else that goes along with that.
Yes, I think there is a lot because the choices of women being like feminists and being able to be in charge of doing of either having children or not having a husband or not having a husband when they have children, those choices are part of feminism, and so they're not questioned in the same way as they would be if people were looking at the outcome of what happens when children do not have parents who are married. When children don't have parents that are married, what ends up happening is, on average, even among the mother and father who live together but aren't married, when the mother has a child, even among that group that live together, 40% of the children do not see their father after the third year, either at all or very minimally. And so you have so the boy crisis and to many degrees the type of the girl crisis that you're seeing, and I'll talk about why we don't recognize that in another dimension in a minute, but the boy crisis exists in two major areas. Among divorced families that don't have father involvement, and among unmarried families that don't have father involvement, and even among those families where the mother and father are living together when the woman has a child. After 3 years, 40% of those children don't see their father at all or see them very minimally, and so that is affecting boys more than girls, but it affects girls very significantly,
Yeah.
especially in their attitude toward boys. They're much more likely to do one of two things. They're much more likely to have sex very quickly because that's the way they know they can attract a man, or be so afraid of a relationship and sex that they become sort of rigid and frigid and unable to connect with trust.
Amazing. How can people get your books?
Either Amazon or Barnes and Noble. Probably Amazon is the least expensive way to get it.
Yes. I read that you were a feminist at one point. Is that true?
That's true. I was on the board of directors of the National Organization for Women in New York City, and I was probably the leading male feminist in the world, and spoke all around the world on the importance of women having options and so on. I still believe it's very important for women to have options. However, feminists made two huge mistakes. One was that they tended to demonize men, and second is that they undervalued the family, and because they put women's freedom as a not only first but all. So women's freedom is perfectly fine until a woman decides to have a child. When a woman decides to have a child, she makes a free choice to put the child's interests above her interests. And at that moment, I feel that it's important for the woman to know that children do the best when they have both father and mother, when they have what I call checks and balance parenting, when almost no parent understands the value of what dads contribute and the 10 different ways that dads contribute to the family that are different from the way moms contribute to the family. When dads roughhouse, they teach children the difference between being assertive and being aggressive. They build a bond with the child.
Yeah.
The bond with the child that the father creates by roughhousing is a bond that allows the father to enforce boundaries and saying, bedtime is 9 o'clock. You get done all your homework, your chores by whenever you get it done. We'll have the time between when you get all that done and bedtime to play. And then if the child says, "Oh, at 9 o'clock," says or she says, "Oh, I didn't do my homework." The dad said, "You had the choice of doing your homework before. You told me everything was done. That's the price you'll have to pay." Dads are much more likely to speak that way and enforce those boundaries, whereas moms are more likely to say something like, "Oh, you didn't finish your peas, and I said you couldn't have your ice cream until you finish your peas. I'll tell you what, have a couple more peas and then you can have your ice cream." So what children tend to do with moms is manipulate a better deal, because mom allows a better deal to be manipulated, because her empathy, the mom's empathy, is saying, "Oh, I don't want to get into a big fight over a few peas and these few precious moments that we have." But she doesn't realize that in those few precious moments, she has just told the child, if you figure out a way that I'm sensitive to your needs, manipulate me that way, and you'll be able to get your ice cream before you finish your peas. Whereas with dad, the child learns that I have to focus on doing what I have to do in order to get what I want. The result of dad enforcing those boundaries is that the child, when she or he has homework to do, is more able to focus on doing the homework rather than be distracted by texts or the newest video program, and therefore gets that homework done, and therefore feels better about himself in school in relation to his peers. His teachers honor him more. His parents are more proud of him. He feels good about himself. When it comes to girl-boy time, girls don't go out with losers. They want to go out with guys that are either the football player or
Right.
have the facade of strength at least. And so the and
So,
so the so the boy then feels distracted, and then he gets depressed, withdraws, and that's what can lead to the school shootings, and that's what can lead to suicide. And as we know, Jesse, the suicide rate of boys in the early 20s is almost 6 times what it
yeah.
is for girls.
Amazing. So let me ask, for my own understanding, I know Barack Obama said that he was the first feminist president. What happened to you that caused you to become a feminist? And what does it feel like to be a man and yet be a feminist? First of all, what caused you to become that way?
Yes, I had a mom who committed suicide, and I saw her unhappiness, and I saw how much she wanted to be involved in a career, but didn't really feel the confidence to do so. And so when feminists were talking about the importance of women having careers, I thought, that I could see in that my mom would have liked to have had more opportunity, more people believe in her, more people see that she had a very high level of intelligence and competence, but she didn't have that self-confidence to sort of go out there and do that. And those were the traditional days when,
Well,
well,
did she feel that way because of lack of opportunity or because she resented her mother?
I didn't know her mother, and so I don't know. I don't think she resented her mother, but I'm not sure of that. I'd have to ask, and unfortunately, I can't.
And
Um,
where was your father? Did you grow up with your father?
I did. I had a very good father, and I had a very good mother.
Were you close to your father?
I was close in the way that boys, I'm 74, and boys in those days were, I was much, much closer to my father than my father was to his father. But, I don't think any boy in those days, that father interpreted his role more as to tell the boy what to do and a little bit how to do it. And but not to have those types of intimate soul, how are you feeling type of conversations. My fa-
So
my
did
father.
you identify with your mother?
No, I identified a little bit more with my father. I'd say about 70, 80% with my father, about 20, 30% with my mother. But I did feel for my mother's pain. And of course, when she committed suicide, I felt even, I had more introspection to do,
Right.
obviously. And so it made me particularly aware of wanting women to be able to do whatever women felt that they wanted to do. I didn't want anybody in society to be held back
Amazing.
because of their race or gender.
How old were you when your mother died?
I was 23 and I was married when my mother died, so that was very helpful because I was married to a very good woman, and she was able to be there for me.
Amazing. So did you feel like a woman or a man?
Oh, I felt very much like a man, and
And what is a man's feeling? What does a man feel like?
man, a feeling like I was confident. I was president of my student body in high school, and when I first became president, I interpreted the way that I should do that is to sort of like walk bent over and humble. And and a teacher came up to me and said, "Warren, be proud of yourself as a leader. You're a good leader. You've organized the school well. So take that in." And I learned to walk the way with that confidence as well. So I was I felt I was secure enough to be able to be very happy with women being whoever they wanted to be. I married a woman who became a very high level executive and a White House fellow, and so she was very confident and competent also.
Where is she now?
She is in Florida now, and she's a consultant to many large corporations. And
Why
was
did you guys divorce?
we were about to have children, and I had already been involved in these issues, talking about male-female relations. And I said to her, if I were to die, would you marry another man like me, more psychologically oriented, or would you marry another IBM executive? And she said, I think I'd probably feel I'd have more in common with another corporate executive. And she reversed the question. I said, I think I'd have probably more in common with somebody who had more of my sort of psychological orientation and my way of looking at the world. And we just really cried, and we've remained friends. And I went to her wedding to another IBM executive, and so we supported each other to go differently. And that was a decision we had the freedom to make
But no
because
children, right? You had no
we did
children?
because we did not have children. If we
Yeah.
had children, I would be with her most likely today.
Amazing. Doctor, thank you so much for coming back on. I enjoyed talking to you.
I enjoy talking to you very much. I love your sincerity and your openness.
Thank you. Straight, white,
No,
Christian.
no, Jesse, this is the subscribe thing.
Oh, yeah. I need you all to subscribe, support us on Patreon, like us on Facebook, and follow me on Twitter.
Got it.